Coming at you from Ford Hall inside Rogers Place, it's the panel brought to you by Sport Chek. Tom Gazzola alongside Jack Michaels and Bob Stauffer from the Oilers Radio Network. Guys, we're going into the final preseason game of training camp. The Oilers coming off a 4-0 whitewashing of the Carolina Hurricanes, a much better performance than what we saw on Monday night. And interestingly enough, two of the youngest guys on the roster are still here, and those two are on the right side.
Well, and that creates some interesting possibilities for what the right side may look like, especially with Anton Slepyshev not ready to go in the preseason. The opening day roster may include both Kyler Yamamoto and Jesse Puljujärvi. I'm not sure too many people had them both on the team, but Yamamoto continues to make plays on the defensive side of the puck that leads to not only offense for him, and he does have 5 goals in the preseason, but chances for his teammates as well. I thought Puljujärvi's effort on Wednesday night in Saskatoon was his best of the preseason, and I'm including his 2-goal, 1-assist performance a few nights previous to that. So I think both guys have taken significant steps forward, and I think there's a real distinct possibility that both will be on the opening day roster.
Bob, follow that up. What do you think?
A couple things. First, with Yamamoto, there was a lot of confidence in the organization with this player. They've been bird-dogging him for over a year. But what was interesting to me was in Penticton, you know, the play was a little bit scrambly, and I don't think he really stood out. Had a good second game in Penticton, and then even the game against the Nate Grant McEwen team, you know, he took a couple of penalties, but he's like much more settled as there's been more structure in the game, and it's just a sign that he can process the game. And then in terms of Puljujärvi, he's got tremendous physical ability. At some point, he's going to pop, and he has, as Jack mentioned, made some strides here during preseason.
And we saw during the preseason last year, Benning and Caggiula both got better than what they were down in Penticton as the preseason moved along, and that structure strengthened.
Okay, let's look at the blue line, gentlemen. Johan Ovitu's an interesting prospect, played for the New Jersey Devils for 25 games last year, of course got hurt, played in the AHL. Eric Gryba is back, he got a new deal. Mark Fain's still around. What are we seeing on the back end? Because we all know Andre Sekera is out, but how do we think this blue line is going to look as we head into next Wednesday?
Well, I think Ovitu is going to be on the team, and you know, Gryba is cinching the top 6 at this stage. But there's going to be some options depending upon the makeup of the teams that the Oilers are going to play, where we might see Ovitu get in lieu of Gryba. I think Fain, it's a challenge for him. You know, you only get a chance to make one first impression. His came a couple of years ago with this coaching staff, so I think he's played fine when he's been in there. You know, I will say this. I think Chris Russell's been the best defenseman overall based on what I've seen. Matt Benning had a much better performance last night against the Carolina Hurricanes in Saskatoon as well.
And my hunch is that it will shake out like we thought, where almost the Oilers will have a kind of a lefty-righty situation coming out of the bullpen, if you will, to make the baseball analogy, against teams that aren't as big as heavy. Ovitu and his ability to move the puck would be a nice matchup. And then against teams with a lethal power play that might have a heavier roster, especially up front, Eric Gryba is ideally suited for those kind of matchups. And then, you know, when Andre Sekera gets back, the blue line will be even deeper. So I don't think in the short term the Oilers are too thin in terms of its defensive ranks.
All right, we've hit on the forward unit. We've hit on the blue line. Let's take a look at the goaltending. We all know Cam Talbot worked a ton last season, and ideally you'd like to see Laurent Brossoit spell him a lot more this upcoming season. What are we seeing from LB going into the season, especially coming off that 4-0 victory?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he delivered a fine preseason outing in his last tilt on Wednesday. Cam Talbot's going to get the same chance on Saturday to kind of refine his game. Hasn't been great in the preseason, but he was certainly great when it counted last year. And Laurent Brossoit's performance of the preseason, coupled with the fact that he was at a save percentage of close to 93 last year when he did get some work, I think Todd McLellan, it's been stated as well right at the top by Peter Chiarelli, ideally you'd like to see at least a 60-20, maybe crawling to 55-25. On the other hand, Cam Talbot's proven he can start as many games as he wants if he's playing well. So I'm not so sure that Talbot's going to want to yield the net that many times.
Probably not.
But Brossoit is starting to prove that he can handle the increased workload.
Very quick comment just for me. I look at the goaltending throughout the organization. What a dramatic change over the course of the last couple of years. And the goalies, certainly at the developmental level we saw in Penticton, and it's translated for a guy like Brossoit, they all kind of look and play the same way. And I think that bodes well moving forward for the Oilers.
All right. The Oilers and Canucks Saturday night, 8 p.m. in Vancouver. As we wind down the preseason, Jack and Bob have the call for you, as always, on 6:30. Chet, I've got you covered right here on EdmontonOilers.com.